Animal Crossing New Horizons was an incredibly important game. It came at a time where we were all stranded in our homes, scared for what the future might hold, and scared for our own sanity. But it let us take some time every day to be free. I found myself reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in years through this game, just hanging out and being in each other's company. It was so cool. As someone who's played every game in the series but can't say I've been grabbed by any particular one, New Horizons is simply different. This was our life away from its problems. We didn't have to worry about being late to paying bills because of mass layoffs around the world. We didn't have to fear that we'd caught a deadly disease. We could just spend a few minutes every day catching some fish, organizing our own little space, and being somewhere that was kinder than reality. As things have become somewhat better, perhaps you've left New Horizons behind. Heck, I definitely did. Picking up all these weeds took forever. But I've spent the last 2 weeks revisiting my island and bringing friends along too. And the experience we had in 2020, the feeling of escaping all the problems with the world and just being in the moment, they're still absolutely here in 2022. But before we get into this video is sponsored by our friends over at SanDisk. Are you okay down there, John? No, I'm small. I wish I could be big like you. Well, what if I told you the secret to largeness is something as small as this? A Nintendo licensed memory card for Nintendo Switch from SanDisk? That's right, we've got the 512GB Animal Crossing branded one here, with a beautiful little leaf that even matches the turquoise Nintendo Switch Lite. Ah, where'd it go? Don't worry, it's right there. Cute. But my goodness, other sizes have completely different designs, like the 64GB one for Zelda fans, 128GB for the Super Mushroom enthusiasts, 256GB for those who want to be invincible, and 400GB for those who want to take victory into their own hands. John, you can find all this on the Western Digital Store. Whoa! Gee, now I'm big, and I can store more in style. With Animal Crossing New Horizons coming to a total of 10.2GB according to Nintendo.com, that means you can store 50 digital copies of this game on this tiny little thing. A Nintendo 64 cartridge could store 1 Animal Forest. Technology stuns and scares me. Thanks again, SanDisk, for making this segment possible. We all need space, and I hope you consider a card for either yourself or as a gift for a loved one. Being able to escape to your deserted island where you can do whatever you want was the perfect timing for 2020. Every single morning I'd go around my island collecting fossils, doing a bit of fishing, checking the store, watering flowers, and just feeling like I had some kind of routine in a time where one really didn't exist. Since then the game has grown a lot, but even if they didn't add a single thing, much like how they physically couldn't in the older games, there'd still be plenty of reasons to come back. It's almost nostalgic coming back to this game, which is wild for something so recent. What do you mean March 2020 was nearly 3 years ago? Didn't it come out like last year? No? This place was my home for a chunk of 2020, and unlike every other Animal Crossing game that came before, we could fully customize everything. Not just the interior of our homes, but the whole dang island. In prior games, everyone was just kinda given a few little random templates. It was unique enough, but it's more something that you adapted to, rather than molding and adapting it yourself. New Horizons though, no established island looks the same. Even if you ended up with the same default layout as someone else, the terraforming lets you chip away at everything tile by tile to make something truly unique. My town is by no means elaborate, but it's my town. It's been a while since I visited, but I know where everything is. My house, the store, the museum, my picture of 5th Nintendo President Tatsumi Kimishima. I don't even need the map app. Get out of here, map app! We don't need you around here. We've got our intuition! But even with well over 100 hours, there's still plenty more I could be doing. I'm happy with the familiarity of my layout, but I never put an ATM or a storage box outside. 120 hours and I never did anything that basic. Here we go. Now there's no need to keep going in to see Nook and getting my money out. I can just do it in the world! I visited a bunch of other islands too via the Dream feature. That's something from New Leaf that got added to this game a bit later. It basically saves your town in an online void, and anyone can visit it regardless if you're there or not. Vedran's Island had these custom designs outside his villagers' homes with their faces on, and that's so clever! I never even considered using custom designs for good. I've never actually changed my rotation of villagers. I've had the exact same lineup since launch, and when they try and leave, I look them straight in the eye, and I say, no. But something was different this time. One of the uglier ones wanted to go, and I let them. Nearly 3 years with this uggo. Gone. Found a monkey instead. Welcome to the island, monkey! There's so much stuff that wasn't here at launch. Gyroids now sometimes spawn in the ground instead of fossils. You can farm and cook, and I absolutely took for granted how good this game looks. Like just sitting down with Brewster and getting a coffee is the coziest thing in the world. Just being in this game is the coziest thing in the world. It's not technically the most impressive thing ever, but all these tiny details come together for something so visually delightful. Whether it's the beginning of the day, sun starting to set, night, or pouring with rain, it's just so peaceful. There was one spot on Abby Willett's island that had maximum vibes. I mean, look at this. Abby works for Sumo Digital, by the way, and it's very funny. They told me they optimize the asset load to the game's performance. You're optimizing game design within a game, Abby! You never stop! Abby also had a Mario Party board. This is a very good island. I also went to Kiddy Kong Facts Island. I think I made a big mistake. Don't go in their house. She Says had this incredible forest area. Uncle Silver, this stunning waterfall. K Smart House, a whole Mario area. And some guy called Daniel Albers got a ton of beautiful areas. And that's the thing, everyone's got something special. I mean, my island is basic as flip, but I like the waterfall spots. It's fascinating to see how people spent their time differently. Some with hours directly comparable to mine have achieved so much more, as while they spent their time building and perfecting, I spent it catching fishies. It maybe gets to the point where you've completed the museum, you've got every fossil, every fish, your town is where you want it to be. But I still think there's so much more at that point. That's when you just live. You can start making your own games within your towns. One of my favorites is hide and seek with a few friends. The island owner obviously knows the layout more than anyone else, but rotating around what town you're in is so much fun. Heck, it's fun just going around doing nothing together. It somehow feels more personal than simply being on a voice call, more like you're actually together. There's something just so raw about it. We're currently in autumn, or fall, which in terms of beauty, one of my favourite times of the year next to spring. We've got golden leaves, a slight hazel tint to the skies, and mushrooms start growing around the island that can be used for cooking. And speaking of recipes, in my short time back I discovered a ton of new ones. Catching fish I'd already seen billions of times had a use, giving me a recipe, and those bottles that show up on the shore were still giving me brand new DIY documents. And by the way, She Says, I love this area on your island, just giving away duplicate DIY recipes. I always sell them, which is a waste. This is way better. You can find Cap'n now, who will serenade you as he takes you to a brand new island. It's beautiful. And sometimes these places have vines growing on them, and you can take them back to your island and use them as ladders. Sometimes red appears. I said sometimes red appears. Oh, there he is. Red sells artwork, and this is the most empty part of my museum. Red doesn't like appearing for me, and I'm not good at determining what's real and what's fake. And of course, there's the Happy Home Paradise expansion. It's a more gamey take on Animal Crossing with a few more objectives, but it still has that laid-back feel to it. Almost like a god mode, which is pretty awesome for players who feel like they've nailed everything in the game. Just give them unparalleled freedom. I can rattle off a ton of new things that were added, like wall dividers, diving, doom mode, villager customization. It really did grow a ton. Thinking back to the day where I first arrived on this island and it was covered in weeds with no bridges, we had to pole vault from section to section, where we stored our fish on the ground while we waited for the museum to open, while we had a tiny house with one room, to now. We've grown with the game. When you take it as a bite-sized routine to your day, I think New Horizons is near perfect. I know some put a bunch of hours in every day and maybe burnt out, but honestly, do try giving it another go. It's not all about the ever-rotating flow of content. Sometimes just being in the moment is enough, whether it's those quiet moments alone or bringing friends together. I may not have played much at all since 2020, but coming back, if only for a bit, reminds me exactly why this is deservedly one of the greatest games on Switch. I mean, it would be even better if there were Puzzle League from New Leaf, but it's good enough. It's good enough.